Okay, hi everybody. We are here to have a kind of mutual chat and a kind of informal interview with each other. I've known Honorata for about 5 or 6 years. We met each other through a workshop that I was running, and it became apparent that we had a lot of parallels in our professional and kind of personal experience in terms of being artists and workshop facilitators. And I thought for both of us, it'd be a really useful thing if we sat down and had a chat and had the opportunity to talk to each other and obviously anyone viewing the video to learn just a bit more about us, what we're about, what our inspirations are, what our backgrounds are. So hopefully it will be kind of informative and interesting for you. So thank you for viewing this video. Honorata, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for this idea. I really appreciate that. And really nice to reconnect with you after what we're probably going to talk about later, our Never Happened exhibition during
Yeah.
COVID.
Oh, dear.
So I'm creative arts therapist and I work mainly in creative therapy, but also run lots of group workshops, including using a variety of art and creative expressions for mental well-being. I recently also engaged a little bit into movement and drawing. I've been running workshops this year, which I absolutely love, moving and drawing and dancing. And I'm an expressive artist, and my art, I find it really hard to answer the question when people say, "What do you create?" Because what do I not create?
Yeah.
Um, I'm not the one medium artist, so I know you're not either. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's not everything needs to be, one singled idea for the market. So yeah, this is who I am.
Mm, yeah. So loads of different influences and an avoidance of being pigeonholed into anything,
Oh
which is
yeah,
good.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. I think we might as well talk about it now, actually.
Yeah.
So Honorata and I were planning an exhibition at Bedford School at the gallery there. Was really looking forward to it. I think it would have been amazing, actually, Honorata. But um, what happened? COVID happened. So
Yes, because
we've
it
got
meant to be April 2020.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, when we had the first lockdown, they postponed it, and then it never happened, of course, because
yeah,
we were looking at years before
exactly.
anything like that will be possible.
Mm.
Yeah. So do you remember the title of it and what was the theme? So we maybe.
Yeah. So it was called The Mind's Diary, wasn't it?
Mm,
Because we kind of came up with that narrative from, I mean, obviously I'll talk from my perspective, but um, you know, my work particularly, both professionally and in, workshops or whatever else I'm doing in terms of service, is really kind of narrative and experiential. So
mhm,
it's really very much based around, just like you, mental well-being and an expression. You know, I suppose the easiest way of putting it is that there's no way that I could ever kind of try and narrate in words what's going on with my
mhm,
thoughts. And it's always felt much more natural to me to, create visual art to express what's
mhm.
going on. And,
Yes.
I know that you and I differ in as much as, I'm quite figurative, I'm quite metaphorical in that way.
Mhm,
Um, but it's very much about exploring what a safe place is, processing
mhm,
emotions, reflecting on, daily experiences from the mundane to the kind of, much more dramatic. And so from my perspective, calling it the Mind's Diary was quite a good way of encapsulating all the different things that kind of pass through your mind on a daily basis, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
How
when you
about you?
say, you said it so well. You said because I couldn't use the words, I always use
Yeah.
the visual. And the same for me. I may even go beyond that. I don't understand the world unless it's processed through my art.
Hmm.
I don't understand sometimes to be, not I don't understand, but to be fully able to process my emotional experiences and make sense of them,
Hmm.
I have to go and create. And then I kind of process. So it's almost ingrained into my DNA. You know, this is how I function as a person, forget
mm,
the artist. And that's in the past was a massive issue before I started using art on a regular basis for my own way of being.
yeah.
um, I didn't feel understood, and I didn't feel connected to myself either, because I wasn't providing myself avenue of understanding the world.
Yeah, yeah, that's a fantastic way of putting it. I've found lately, I mean, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I've found lately that I've started creating art, the older that I get, that is making less sense to me, actually. It's almost like
Yep.
like when I was younger, I could be a little bit more black and white thinking about, well, okay, this is what this means to me, and I feel like this.
Yeah.
Whereas now, it's like I'm creating a lot of things that are really symbolic, and I know that they all, everything has a meaning within it. But it's interesting you mentioned, because as soon as you said the DNA thing, I was like, it's a bit like these images are just a part of that
Yeah.
DNA. So
Yeah.
it's a journey, isn't it? There's no way of giving it like a beginning and an ending, because it's all a creative process. And I think,
Yeah.
again, the older that I get, the less important the
Yes.
outcome is,
Yes, you
actually.
detach from it. Yes, absolutely. And like you said, things may emerge and they may not have that kind of explanation in the first place to you, but do they need to?
Yeah,
If you
exactly.
feel they somehow are serving some purpose, they're doing something to you that you need them to do,
Mhm.
that really doesn't matter. That narrative, that external layer, it's more towards we can explain to others so that art can be received in the world, maybe
Yes,
possibly
exactly that.
promoted, purchased, or not, or at
Yeah.
least understood through the
Mhm.
eyes of others. But I
Yeah.
like I have moments, I call it throwing the color, like, throwing clay on the pottery wheel,
Mhm.
throwing, where I just walk in, especially after days when I work a lot verbally
Mhm.
and a lot of in my thinking brain.
Yeah.
I've been forced to sit for a long time. I know I'm on that edge. I need to do something to come back to
Mhm.
myself. And I walk into the room and I grab the paints, and I don't know what color I want, what am I painting. It doesn't matter. What matters is I open the journal or I get a piece of paper and I throw the color that I am
Yeah.
feeling on instinctual level.
Yeah.
I need recharge myself. This
Mhm.
started in pandemic for me, actually, interestingly, because we
Yeah.
worked so much on Zoom. I'm
Mhm.
sure I experienced, cyber sickness. I was almost like dizzy and
Yeah. Yeah.
too many hours on the screen, and that's when it started. So that
Mhm.
brings me back to color,
Yeah.
something sensory. I'm
Yeah.
seeing the color. This is real. This is not the screen. And with me, I feel colors.
Mhm.
Color has for me almost like a flavor or scent. It is very sensory.
Yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, we so many kind of positive and negative experiences came out of COVID, and it's interesting that that would never have happened had
Probably
you been
not.
compressed like that,
Yes.
into this kind of virtual world. And we're going to talk a bit about AI, aren't we, a bit later on. What about your professional life then, Honorata? What's the what do you offer, and what's the kind of basis
Mhm.
around that?
So I offer kind of that offer my work.
Yeah.
Now I work in two types of, I would say that two strands. One is one-to-one creative therapy, but that's a limited number of clients because of my capacity.
Mhm.
It really takes a lot out of me, but I love doing that. So I
Yeah.
have one-to-one individual clients, and they vary from adults, teens, and occasionally some children. Because there's always that assumption as a creative therapist, I work with children. No, I work a lot
Yeah.
with adults.
Yeah.
And the second one is group work, and that vary depending on where I am in my creative development. So
Mhm.
used to be lots of visual arts for maybe 5, 6 years. Now I moved more into process experimental art, like
Mhm.
we call it our own local Tate Modern kind of workshops, when people move and draw on the wall,
Yeah.
and it's all a little bit crazy, but absolutely, people love it.
Yeah.
It's so much needed. So that's kind of my artistic two ways of work. And of course, I also train counselors to use creativity in therapy. That's a
Yeah.
big thing. I'm counseling tutor, so I help those people who want to become therapists or already became therapists and are practicing, and they kind of, well, I want to go a little bit beyond talk. I want to
Hmm.
do more, like what you mentioned, there are ways of expression and accessing emotions that just cannot be put into the words. So I help them to learn what can be utilized with the clients. And, those people don't have to be artists.
Yeah.
As long as they're willing to be open to be creative, they can share that with others.
Hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. It
Yeah,
actually sounds quite somatic,
yeah,
with that movement involved in it. So you're really
yes,
shifting things around and processing things. Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
yeah.
I should point out, actually, what I remember, the reason why Honorata and I didn't converge back to maybe doing an exhibition together is because we don't live near each other anymore.
No,
But you know what? Never say never. We'll
no, you never
see.
know.
We'll see.
So,
Um,
Lindsay, a little bit about your work, because you have a
yeah.
beautiful painting.
Uh,
Your background is your painting
Thank you.
behind you.
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit, we talked a tiny bit about our kind of like personal work. And I suppose my professional work is that, where I stand at the moment, I've been teaching art techniques for the last probably 30 years, I'd say. I qualified as a higher education tutor, and I have taught all age ranges, but if I was able to facilitate it, I am more interested in working with adults or teens, in fact, because of the fact that there is such a strong correlation between creativity and well-being. And I think just like you, during COVID, it really just took me in a direction of doing a lot more evidence-based research around what that means in reality.
Mm-hmm.
Creative well-being, it's a term that's used all the time.
Yes.
What does it mean in reality, and can you evidence base it? And the answer is you absolutely can. There was a paper that was written, I think around 2017, uh, around that. And do you know what? I'm going to have to look up what the title of that was, but it was the all-party parliamentary group that did a huge study into things like social prescribing,
Mm-hmm.
loads of different creative activities, whether it was like music, gardening, creating art, and over again, the evidence was just like irrefutable of how
Mm-hmm.
much money it saved the NHS, how much people started to feel better, they cared more about what they ate, they slept better, they had more of a sense of community, all these amazing
Mm-hmm.
things that are totally possible to evidence base just kind of fascinated me. And really that's because of my own personal story, because I won't delve too deep, but basically I didn't have a particularly happy childhood. My creative journey definitely kept me on the right side of
Mm-hmm.
being around, essentially, throughout my life when things were difficult. And, so just to kind of draw it back, I've been doing workshops of sort of two-dimensional wet and dry media for about 30 years. And then obviously I've started going more in the direction of well-being. I've written two journals, which I self-published through crowdfunding they're now available on Amazon. One of them is basically for adults and teens, and it's just for you
Mm-hmm.
to experiment with art. The other one I wrote when I got a diagnosis of autism and ADHD. That was about 5 years ago now. I can't believe it. And it was specific around the kind of main areas of diagnosis to help people to work through what their feelings were around it. I will add, it's not just for people that are neurodivergent. It's about
Mm-hmm.
anybody just being aware of things like, personal boundaries,
Yes.
building confidence for yourself, what do you believe in as an individual? All those kind of questions that I'm really
Mm-hmm.
fascinated about, and that frankly I could have done with at that time. So it's a lot to do with art kind of imitating reality for me and vice versa. The two things are like inextricably
Mm-hmm.
linked, that I help myself through being creative and therefore want to help others through being creative. So that's a bit about my personal view on my professional life, if you like. Um, so what my next question is, which is really kind of, it's a difficult question because one sometimes feels like they are pigeonholed into what qualifications have you got to do this? Because, a lot of people are very precious around the kind of whole art therapy thing. You have to do this 5-year course, don't you? And then you can call yourself an art therapist. But I think there's a whole range of other skills.
Yes, there
And
is,
yeah.
absolutely. And interestingly, you mentioned that because I just delivered training last week to level 4 counseling students who are just about to qualify next year about how to integrate creativity into the practice. And on that subject also, I'm contributor to 2 books about creative counseling, and I'm in the process of the 3rd book on creative counseling and psychotherapy. Art therapist is a protected title in Great Britain, and it does require separate training. However, like you said, there are lots of professional avenues of work that include integration of art and creativity for healing and helping
Yeah.
purposes.
Hmm.
Normally emotionally charged processing is involved, or helping in regulating your nervous system. So it is important to know what is what, and it's important for professionals to work within the boundaries of limits of own proficiency, which
Hmm.
includes exactly what you were mentioning between the lines, knowing what the boundaries, what I can offer,
Hmm.
why I can offer it, to what degree. I do lots of work one-to-one because I am qualified therapist and counselor. Uh,
Yeah.
so I feel comfortable and confident in one-to-one work where I can integrate creativity, because that's been part of my training as well
Sure.
in counseling. But that I'm integrating that in counseling setting. But that doesn't mean I'm not using it in a group work. I'm not doing group art therapy. I'm doing therapeutic arts groups
Yeah.
where it's less emotionally heavily charged, but has massive well-being benefits. So,
Mhm.
for example, I'm not working with individual trauma in group work, but people can still process and something, express themselves through creative
Mhm.
material. So it is about that, knowing the what is happening. What doesn't help is the mixed up and muddled up all the words and the phrases.
Mhm.
A coloring book called Art Therapy, and that is not really
Mhm.
therapist coloring book, which
Yeah.
is great if that's if that's calming you down and you sit and color. Great benefit for you. Why not? But
Yeah.
yeah, so art therapy and art therapists are protected titles in Great Britain.
Yeah.
There's a very different setup in continental Europe of that.
Yeah.
And it's about where you work and with limits of what you can offer in a safe way and
Yeah.
professional way.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about the future for you? Because you've already described quite a lot of personal growth in the last sort of 5 years or so, but is there anything that you're kind of aspiring to, maybe? Is there anything on the horizon that you would change or look to do?
I have this little vision or dream, which is completely unformed yet. It's just coming to the surface, if incubation
Yeah,
period.
yeah, yeah, totally.
I would like to have a space, and that will have to be custom made. So that's why it's going to take time to figure this out.
Mm.
When people can come in, maybe very small group, because the space, I can't afford a very big space, or one-to-one. When this is going to sound crazy, but that's what I want, where one wall is blackboard paint and you can draw on it. Another wall has lots of texture on it, so you can lean against it, you can touch it, and it's got soft and hard and textured surfaces. And there's
Wow.
also area of the wall that is cold and one that is hot or
Hmm.
warm. So you have sensory temperature differences, texture differences. You can draw with the size of your body because you're on that wall, so you're not fiddling with the pencil. You have other art materials on the floor, and you have space to move and dance.
Wow.
So integrating everything in one pot.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
Oh my
but how
goodness.
do I build it is, yeah, any
Yeah.
questions there? That'd
You
be
know
great.
what? I can totally see you doing it somehow. So, that sounds
That would be, yeah,
amazing.
someone coming, and what really fascinates me, this is another layer of craziness, do a lot of work like that with limited or non-talking, so
Mm.
very,
Yeah.
very non-verbal based,
Yeah.
especially for people who maybe are non-verbal by the way they are, or
Yeah.
partially non-verbal. And yeah, and just create therapeutic connection through those creative processes and being with someone. So, you could be drawing along them, you could be tapping into their movement. Yeah, I don't know how I would call it, but that's my little thing. What about you?
That sounds amazing. And that's a language all of its own, isn't it?
Yes.
And I love the fact that you don't have to explain anything verbally
No.
because I think that could be a really inclusive environment.
Hmm.
I love the sound of that. Good luck. I want to see it happen.
Yeah, you come over when it's
I
done.
will. And I'll be there. I'll do it.
Yeah,
Oh, I'd love to
tell
do
me
it.
about your plans after
Yeah,
those journals.
so I am going in the direction. Well, first of all, I'm going to start being a social prescribing facilitator in November, which I'm really looking forward to, for the local authority that I currently live in. So, as I said, I feel really passionately about the fact that, um, the NHS has done something so precious here by offering that much more
Hmm.
holistic approach. And like you said, in Europe and stuff, this is all stuff they've been doing for ages, and I feel like we're just catching up with
Hmm.
it now. Some areas, unfortunately, don't offer social prescribing, but just a very brief kind of outline of what social prescribing is. Um, when you live in a certain area and you're registered to that surgery, you can then go on to something like
Hmm.
Eventbrite or go to the council or your GP and say, I would like to access social prescribing. Do we do it here? And basically, they should be able to offer you things like, as I mentioned earlier, gardening, art sessions, music,
Anything
singing.
what's in area, isn't it? Yeah, we have it here.
Exactly.
So anything from I actually delivered session for them last year for
Yeah,
social prescribing. Yeah, it's beautiful, because it goes from physical health,
yeah,
social aspect, creativity. You could be joining a choir, you could be joining art group or do
yeah.
gardening allotments, community gardens, whatever.
Yeah, it's fabulous and it's completely free. So, if your area isn't doing it, then I really, encourage you to lobby your local MP
Mm.
to shift that in the right direction. But I guess from a personal perspective, something that I'm massively excited about is I obviously wrote those two journals, and I feel like I've been gently kind of moving towards the time where I'm ready to switch from just offering creative well-being sessions to journaling sessions. I feel personally I've been doing this for such a long time now. I really enjoy it, don't get me wrong, but I feel specifically
Mhm.
a real personal draw towards helping people facilitate their own journaling journey. So,
And
um,
that would be more visual or written
yeah,
or mixture. Tell me more.
yeah, a mixture of the two.
Mm.
So I would be hopefully from next year, if I can get organized and get all my sessions written up and all the mock-ups and everything done from it, I'm going to be popping all the sessions for next year on Eventbrite. So you can find me through my name on there, and it will be a mixture of in-person events and online events so that it can be as inclusive as possible. Um, so it's going to be something that I'm hoping to run during term time. It will give you an introduction to what journaling is all about. It will encapsulate helping people to also, develop their art techniques as well. But it's not about, it's never about an outcome as far as I'm concerned. It's about the journey. It's about learning ways to be creative, be in the moment, be mindful, be in the flow with doing something without thinking about anything else. And if there will be sessions around dealing with challenging feelings or experiences and things like that, and how to process that through journaling. So I can't wait, Honorata, honestly.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Let's just talk a little bit more about what you mentioned, because I feel from my experience this is the biggest struggle for many people accessing, especially later in life,
yeah,
creative ways of work. It's not about the outcome.
hmm,
That's the difficult one for many people to detach
definitely.
from. There's that kind of, I need to walk away with something pretty, something approved by others, something that tells the others that I'm good enough in what I've done. It's all inside work, but there's this external. But as we both know, as artists, the creative process happens inside, and it's often ugly, and it's often
Yeah,
about next, and things don't look great. It's a chaos, it's a mess, which you're gonna make sense out of it. That's the
hmm,
creative process. And without failures, mistakes, mess, chaos, when you frustrated, next page that's not working for me, you wouldn't get where you need to get. There's no other way,
Yeah.
there's no shortcut. That's the
Absolutely.
nature of creative process. And actually, I wouldn't like the shortcut, because I think the painful bit in the middle has the massive value for a human being. Yes. So
Hmm.
tell me more about how you encounter an experience, and maybe how you approach if you happen to come across people when they really want to start something creative, maybe they're disconnected long time. Would that be journaling? Would that be art or writing or whatever? But they
Hmm.
are still held by the
Yeah.
outcome.
Well, exactly like you, it happens all the time. And sometimes um people don't ever get over it,
No,
unfortunately. It's a
we never
continuous,
will.
yeah, they never will. And you can do all the reassurance, all the kind of talk around the experience, removing the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like you, it's you're looking at processes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
so instead of saying we're going to sit here, we're going to do that, doof, and this is what it's going to look like, the emphasis is much more on the process. So,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, I mean, I'm sure it's the same with you. I have tried and tested workshops that I have done in so many different environments because I know they yield the best outcome.
Yeah.
People end up doing something, they go, I can't believe I actually did that.
Yeah. Oh wow. Oh, did I do it?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it went on my fridge and it's still there and I've shown my friends and I'm really proud of it. Amazing. But that isn't the only outcome.
No,
It's
it's not.
it's not, is it? Because it's about what's happening at the time. So, a really simple way that and this is a kind of roundabout way of explaining it, but a really simple way that I use is when people go into the session, I say, right, on the back of your piece of paper or whatever it is you're working on, score yourself how you're feeling, general mood out of 10. Okay, don't show anyone, just score yourself.
Mhm.
And then when you finish, score yourself in general mood out of 10. And I mean, honestly, I don't think so far anyone has ever shared with me that they've felt worse afterwards. Thankfully, it's the first time for everything.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's the process. That's the
that is the
invisible.
process. Yeah.
That's
And so
invisible. Hmm.
exactly. So what I do is during a session, I just kind of guide the conversation around gestures. Do you like the material? Do you like the way that it feels? That kind of thing. Um, I mean, I guess Honorata, you're much more focused on the counselling side of things. Uh, more kind of professionally than I am, I would say. I'd say that mine is quite light touch. Um, and I tell you why. I don't want to waffle on, but basically, it doesn't appeal to me personally to go that far
Hmm.
with other people. I kind of I feel like I would start to compromise my own mental well-being, and
Yeah, and you have
yeah,
and that's it. You have to really. I have
yes,
very limited number of clients, like I said, and I'm not
yeah,
increasing. I'm
yeah,
rather decreasing.
yeah,
And group workshops I do, they're not therapy groups. They are
yeah.
more expressive and well-being focused, because my capacity already been utilized in my one-to-one work. And I don't have massive capacity,
Mm,
because when I work with someone, I go on quite deep
mm,
journey,
yeah,
and that's it. This is the work we do, because it crosses the boundary, personal and professional. This is how we are.
mm,
This work takes out of us,
yeah,
because it's not
exactly.
the work you can do on the surface. And
Mm,
this is not 9 to 5 and filling in the spreadsheet.
yeah,
We're working with, number one, ourselves, number two, our own creative process, which is very precious for our identity, and we're
hmm,
working with people.
hmm,
So that's going to take a lot out of a
yeah,
person. So yes, I feel you have to really protect yourself. You have to know what we talked about earlier, and that limit of proficiency, what I'm
yeah,
happy about, what not. And this is this balancing act as well. I don't know if you ever noticed, between how much I give out in my work with people, but what's left for me as an artist, when that's
exactly.
detached from people. I still have my days, hours, if I'm lucky, in
Mhm,
my studio, because I'm quite busy now. And that is not for working on next workshop. It's not about what will I deliver in therapy session with the client. It's my art,
mm,
about me.
yeah,
That's it. And
yeah,
and that needs energy.
yeah.
It's not just
Absolutely.
about time, when you would know when you burned out, when you had sensory overload, when you had too much
Mhm.
coming in. I can't create, I need to
Yeah.
recharge to be able to go into creative flow. Flow is quite demanding, actually.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And you need a designated amount of time and personal
Yes,
resource to
yes.
do something the way you want to do it. So,
Yeah, and it's not tick job. You have
yeah,
to work on a bit in the process to achieve that stage when the flow happens. You can't
yeah,
just switch it on.
yeah. Completely understand what you're saying, and that's why I respect you so much more because I felt, I contemplated throughout my career, shall I go and do the art therapy qualification?
Mhm.
Shall I dedicate myself to doing that? And overarchingly, in the end, I came to the conclusion that it would not be good for me personally, because I find that even when I'm doing creative well-being workshops, people open up a lot anyway. Okay.
Yes.
They find it an environment where they're going to talk to you about some really
Mhm.
tricky subject matter. And ultimately, Honorata, we both freelance for other people. It's not as if we're just doing these workshops ourselves, but being completely blunt about it, no one's picking up the tab for our mental well-being at the end of
No.
it. We have to protect ourselves because we have families, we have lives that exist outside of running these things. And I just recognize personally that actually, I don't think I've got what it takes to be doing this all the time. And
Things need to work for you.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
bottom line.
yeah,
And we live in a strange world of obsession with the linear progression, I call it,
mhm,
rather than growth.
yeah,
Growth is organic.
yeah,
Growth, like branches of the tree, can go left, right, down to the roots. It can grow up as a tree. We only looking at linear step-by-step progression in our society. We don't see how growth can happen in diverse directions. I'll give you another example very close to what you said. I've been asked last year, and by quite big amount of people in my professional circles, when will you do Honorata, when will you do supervision qualifications? Because you'll be great. And then people were asking me, can you be my supervisor? And I refused. I went into movement
mm,
because I don't want to sit again in my head on my chair and work with emotional material again. That is linear progression
yeah,
in my field of work, and
mhm,
that would be expected of me.
yeah,
But I developed something brand new with my movement. I
yeah,
consolidated knowledge from art and myself, and I added extra training this year. I did, Laban movement. I just came back from authentic movement circle. So I added it all and created new thing, which works for me because it's
mhm,
nourishing for me. I
mhm,
want to move. I
yeah,
don't want to sit in my head. So this is growth that goes different directions. It's organic. It's not steps up, up, up. Many people
yeah,
get lost in up, up, up. And
mm,
artists as well, when they create, many of them sadly I've seen going, now I have to sell my artwork.
mm,
And
mm,
that sometimes is not what they were expecting it to be
yeah,
like, and sadly blocks them
yeah,
creatively. So that you really have to decide, what do you want to do with your creative outlet? How is it going to work for you? And I always say to young people, who are looking for, I get approached quite often. Young people are, oh, how do I get into this line of work? It's like, okay, calm down. What
mm,
do you want to do with you? What do you enjoy doing?
yeah,
They may say, I enjoy painting, but I hate being around people. I said, don't go into art therapy then.
yeah, exactly.
There are different ways, maybe
Yeah,
maybe then illustration, maybe something else.
yeah,
It is about you, like what you
yeah.
recognize, what is the best, and that's about being mature creatively.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, sometimes it takes a lot of failure. We change as human beings all the time. What we wanted in our
Absolutely.
20s is wildly different to like where I am now. And
And
uh,
you can't predict. You
yeah,
can't
it's trial
predict.
and error. It's trial
And
and
you
error.
can't predict in 5 years I'll be doing that, because you don't know what's going to happen for 4 years before
Yeah,
that. Where,
yeah.
like movement, that only came to my life. I always knew it would be there, but it came in the last 2 years because it needed that time to wait for very various reasons. But you go with intuition,
Mm,
and that is what many people detached from.
Yeah.
And when you create as well, very often you have to go with what sits there.
Yeah.
Not just copying the picture.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think, I mean, this could be a good time to start switching towards AI, actually, couldn't it?
Hmm.
Because I think this is where I feel a lot of concern
Hmm.
and
Yes.
empathy for young people because they see this kind of very shiny, um,
Polished art,
yeah,
pictures, yeah,
yeah,
to perfection,
exactly.
brushed. Hmm.
Yeah. And so the bar is already ridiculously high, but the bar never existed in the first place because
Exactly.
it's an illusion.
Yeah. With I find it fascinating, that it created the first wave of response or reaction from artistic communities was fear.
Yeah.
Fear of this will take something away from us.
Hmm.
This will steal something. It will make us dead. The really
Yeah.
kind of substantial fear. But then let's like what you just defined, what we're looking at with AI.
Mm.
Highly polished pictures that
Yeah.
is that all what art can offer?
Yeah.
We all know that it's not.
Absolutely. So what is your, I mean, can you bullet point any specific areas that you have either hope or, hopelessness about AI?
I believe that AI, creatively you can use it as a tool, especially for building the using an incubation period of your creative process. So when you're gathering ideas, you feel something is there. Let's say, I don't know, I'm just gonna make it up. Someone walks by the forest. Oh, really, I had this connection with the forest for years. I want to really go more into art that demonstrates that. So there is something, but they not sure what,
Yeah.
and they can start using AI, like popping ideas,
Mhm.
forest and connection and this and that, and emotional response and shelter in the forest. What comes up? Incubation period may be supported if that person wants it to be supported. I don't believe personally, this is quite a radical view, that all those beautiful, perfect pictures that AI creates will take over, because okay, if there are people who want that on the walls, let them have it, but not everyone is going to have that. This is like McDonald's, isn't it? You can't have
Mm.
McDonald's every day.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's that
And
homogenized
yeah,
thing.
so I don't really worry about that in this way, but I do worry about will it discourage creative thinking,
Yeah,
and will it discourage or decrease critical thinking
yeah.
and exploration?
Hmm.
Because
Yes,
it gave me ideas, it gave me answers. I don't have to do anything now. So
exactly.
that's your personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Each person is that, how do I use it?
Hmm.
And then we don't know.
Yeah, exactly that. I fear to say something a little bit controversial, looking at the landscape of the world at the moment of people's decision making about things
Hmm.
like that. Um, I mean, I guess kind of very much in the vein of what you've said, I feel like it can be a useful link in the chain, but it's not the chain, if you see what I mean.
No,
So
it's not replacing, the
exactly.
process.
That's exactly it. So, you just pointed out something along the lines of, if you wanted to start getting a collaged idea
Hmm.
of multiple
Yeah.
things to start getting you motivated to do your own work following that, that's absolutely fine. But I think okay, I've got a great example to tell you about this.
Go on.
On me for buying a rug from a popular Chinese chain
Yeah.
online when we moved house. It looked all right from like a distance. It serves its purpose, right? Serves its
Yeah.
purpose. However, on closer examination, my daughter told me like that's AI generated, right? And I was like, how could you tell? Because I was scratching part of the rug thinking, has a bit of nail varnish or something been poured on this?
Yeah.
Okay. The closer I looked at it, the more the design made no sense whatsoever
Okay.
because it was a homogenization
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
a process of taking all these things like tradition, say for example, traditional rug, blue, um, you know, Eastern style, whatever
Yes.
it
Yeah.
was, homogenizing it and spitting out this rug design at the end of it, where if you were kind of like 6 foot away from it, you go, "Oh, that's quite nice." But then the closer you get to it, you're like, what the hell's going on? None of these lines meet up, and there's these random color, little dots of color. So I guess if I had to put it into a nutshell, the more advanced it gets, I feel like the more conflated with reality it could become. It took
Yes.
us, my daughter's tuned into it because she's grown up with it, but I
Yeah,
was
good.
like, just what, what's happened here? Um, so I'm worried about t people deciding to take the lazy route of using
Yes, and that is
using
the
AI.
risk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the fact that it could never, and as far as I'm concerned, have any place whatsoever in like a true creative process,
No.
because it is that human experience. What are we without our human experience? What are we without the vulnerability and the mess and everything else? We're not human. That's the answer as far as I'm concerned, anyway. And I just want to bring up one final point on AI. It's really bad for the environment. It's really, really bad for the environment. We need a lot of energy to keep these huge, weird machines going, water, carbon emissions, all this kind of stuff. It's going in the kind of direction of the other stuff that's going on that's not good for our environment. And I just think, should it never have happened in the first place? Because was that the only solution to it not
Mm.
expanding to a point that is really going to threaten us as a human race? I'm no expert on AI, and I'm sure a lot of people would listen to what I'm saying and go, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. But from my perspective, that is the experience that I've had with it. And I do worry about its potential to disrupt both the environment and people's capacity to be valued as artists.
And also people, that example of your daughter, the rug, I really like it because that actually, well, I like it. It kind of creates another question. If we have, generations after us mainly exposed to that, like AI created
Yeah,
images and
exactly.
products, will they be, what's the follow-up of that? We don't know
Yeah,
because we haven't experienced that yet. So we don't know, how will that impact people's ability for authentic connection and seeing things more for real? Will
yeah,
that change something how our brain is reading
mm,
connections? And
yeah,
we don't, this is the thing, we don't know that, and we probably won't know till we both die and there's another generation that was born into it, and then
yeah.
someone does research, this is unknown.
And you know what? That's such an interesting point, Honorata. Like, as human beings, we need that connection.
Yeah.
Need to know that somebody else has felt the same way that we have, especially
And
in
it's
our
a
moments of
human,
pain. Yeah,
and it's a human because this is the thing, it's not just connecting, talking to someone, it's about this unspoken
yeah,
collective awareness, or sometimes unconscious
yeah.
collective awareness, that we all have that human experience in
Mm,
our DNA.
mm.
So, regardless of who you are, how you are, if you feel this is sad, I get it
Yeah,
because I know what sadness is,
yeah,
that kind of connection.
indeed. And I feel like there's a potential for it to drive a wedge into
Yeah.
that, actually.
Mm.
Yes. Well, that's not a very positive way of ending
Let's end on
the
something
conversation.
positive then. Let's end on something
Anyway,
positive.
yes.
Let's just have a very quick reflection on the fact that in last 20 years, at least in the UK, we started opening up more, the services started opening more to use of creativity as the impact on, with the
Mm,
positive impact on health and well-being. And
mm.
that's something to recognize. And I'm seeing more and more people who never really thought about art or creativity, reaching out for things,
Yeah.
trying them. And that's something I always want to encourage in people. And I never forget one of my learner ages ago, before I became a therapist, it was a group, adults group class. The lady was 75 and she enjoyed the painting session. She laughed at her painting, it wasn't anything about beautiful product, but she said to me, Honorata, is it too late for me? Is it too late? And I said, why? You said, is it too late to learn? Did you enjoy that? Yes. Did you have a good time? Yes. Did you experience joy? Yes. Never too late for joy.
Absolutely. Wow. What an affirming thing to hear.
from this lady.
Yes. And that gives you the impetus and the determination to
Yeah,
carry on.
yeah, and
Yeah.
never too late. Okay.
Yeah. Never too late. And I can think of one. I got a Christmas card a few years ago that said, "Thank you so much for your art sessions. They keep me going."
Yes, yes. Brilliant.
Amazing. In a nutshell, that's it.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you too. It's been fascinating.
Really
And it's
nice to reconnect with you, and
yeah,
I hope people enjoyed this session. I
yes.
will share on my social media and my channel, so
Yeah.
that I will put under the description links to your website, my website. So if anyone wants to connect with two of us in any way, or look at your journals on
Mhm.
Amazon, or your Eventbrite pages and
Thank you.
events, they'll be there. Okay.
Amazing. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Honorata.
Thank
You
you.
take care.